Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Girl Be Selfish podcast. This is our inaugural episode 1, and I'm super excited that you are here with me today. This is our first podcast episode. Whoop, whoop. Listen, I'm celebrating because this podcast has been a long time coming, and it is finally here. Here's what I can tell you about the Girl Be Selfish podcast. It is going to be life transforming. We are going to delve into some heavy topics. We're going to delve into some real topics. And if anybody knows anything about me, we keeps it real around here. We keeps it real, relevant, and raw. So if you're looking for that kind of talk, then the Girl Be Selfish podcast is the podcast for you. But listen, I am Chanel McCord. I am your podcast host. I am the CEO and clinical director of Oasis Wellness Group. We are a mental health counseling center and advocacy agency where we do all things mental health. We provide mental health therapy. We provide conferences, workshops, talks, books, whatever it is, so that we can get this message of mental health and wellness out there. We are doing it. If anybody knows anything about me, mental health is what I love. I eat it, I breathe it, I speak it, I sleep it. Like, listen, I am also a minister, and one of my areas of ministry is making sure that this message of mental health goes far and wide, even within the context of the church. And so I'm super excited to be with you all for this first episode of the Girl Be Selfish podcast. So welcome, everybody. I'm super excited that you're here again. I want to talk to you a little bit about where the podcast came from. So the Girl Be Selfish podcast was born out of the Girl Be Selfish anthology project. It is called Girl Be Selfish, Learning to Embrace Your Rhythm of Self-Care. And we're a group of 20 authors, including myself, making 21 authors. We came together and we said, you know what? We have stories of resilience. We have stories of empowerment, of how we've been through different things in our lives. And we use self-care as a tool to help us to overcome. And so we came together and we wrote an anthology project, giving you all kinds of tools and tips and understanding of our stories and our journeys in order to help you along with your journey. So as you all can see, I have the book right here. Here it is, y'all, in wax, black and white. Girl Be Selfish, Learning to Embrace Your Rhythm of Self-Care. Listen, these are all of the authors involved. I want to give them a shout out real quick, so I'm going to read their names. We have Aaliyah Adenuga, Paula Anderson, Amber Boyd, Tisa Davenport, Dr. Zeri Gross, Brittany Hill Morales, Marsha German, Dr. Joyce Mallory, Dr. Tiffany L. Mayers, Yelena Owens, Latanya Orr Richard, Dr. Rochelle Robinson, Mayoki St. Laurent, Brittany N. Smith, Dr. Danita Thompson, Aisha Vigo, Cheyenne White, Donna E. Williams, QR Williams, Tanya Wilson, and none other than myself, Chanel McCord. And so these are the authors of the Girl Be Selfish anthology. So first, I want to encourage you, if you have not yet done so, head over to Amazon and grab you a copy. It is on Amazon. It's already published. It's ready to go. Grab a copy and leave us a review and let us know how the book has been life transforming for you. What I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. You'll want to get the book because this first season of the podcast is going to be me interviewing all of the authors, right? And so the 20 episodes is going to be me interviewing the authors of the anthology project. And so you want to make sure that you get your copy of the book so that you can follow along as we talk to the authors about the nuggets from their chapter, what they learned and what they wanted to make sure that you all who are listening and who are watching are able to get out of it. Let me tell y'all something. It is good stuff. It is chock full of nuggets. And so I want to encourage you all to make sure that you go ahead and you get your copy today. And so with this inaugural episode, I wanted to jump in and I wanted to talk about what selfish is and what selfish is not. And so I use this term selfish as a way for us to talk about self-care, right? There's this idea that, people are saying popularly that self-care isn't selfish. And truth of the matter is, self-care is actually one of the most selfless acts that you can take. Why? Why, Chanel, is self-care one of the most selfless acts that you can take? I'm so glad that you asked, because when I fill my cup and when my cup is overflowing, what happens is everybody else gets the benefit from the overflow, right? And that is called self-care. So really, when I tune into myself and I take care of myself and I take care of the things and I prioritize myself and I take care of the things that matter to me, what I'm really doing is filling my cup so that other people around me can experience the overflow. So many of us are used to pouring out and pouring out and pouring out and pouring out, and then our cups get empty. And then what happens? We fill ourselves just enough so that our cup can be full, and then we pour out and we pour out and we pour out again. And we find ourselves in this continuous cycle of having to run and, having to run and fill our cup. When truth of the matter is, true self-care is not just filling my cup, but making sure my cup is overflowing. Because when my cup is overflowing, as I said before, everybody gets to experience the overflow of the goodness, of the strength, of the joy, of the whatever you want to call it, that's flowing from the outside of me, and not getting what leftovers I have because I keep depleting myself. And so this podcast is born out of having real conversations about mental health and about being selfish. No, we're not talking about selfishness in the sense of having a disregard for other people, only worried about myself. I don't care what's going on with other people. We're not talking about being selfish in that sense. We're talking about being self-ish, right? And so it's the ish that matters. It's all these stuff that we do, right? It's not being selfish in terms of, it's only about me, but being selfish in terms of making sure that I'm taking care of myself. And so self-care is such a buzzword these days, right? Everybody's talking about self-care. Everywhere you turn, self-care, self-care, self-care. There's workshops, there's conferences, there's seminars, there's commercials, like you name it, you will have it. Everybody is talking about self-care. The problem with the way in which most people are talking about self-care, they're only talking about vacations, they're only talking about relaxation. Now, let me be very clear on this. All of that has a place in self-care. Vacations have a place in self-care. Relaxation has a place in self-care, but that's just one aspect of self-care. And so what this podcast is here to do, we want to talk about all things self-care. We want to talk about the mental aspect. We want to talk about the physical aspect. We want to talk about the emotional aspect. We want to talk about the social aspect. We want to talk about the occupational aspect. We want to talk about what self-care has to do with purpose. We want to talk about what self-care has to do with all of the things, right? We don't want to just focus on any one aspect. We want to make sure that we redefine self-care in a more robust way. And so that is what we are here for with this podcast. As you tune in week to week, especially in this first season, you're going to hear these stories and these journeys of these authors and these women who had to learn that self-care is truly a journey, and it's not a one size fit all. Hear me and hear me clearly, y'all. Self-care is not a one all. We try to make it a one size fits all because that's what sells, right? If self-care is just relaxation, then it's easy for it to sell in certain aspects. If self-care is just something else, if self-care is just physical health, then it's easy for it to sell on that way. But truth of the matter is, self-care is not a one size fit all. And what self-care for me may not be self-care for you. And guess what, y'all? That is absolutely okay. This is not about giving you a cookie cutter version or cookie cutter idea about what this self-care thing is. This is not that at all. This is simply about you finding your rhythm. You finding your rhythm with self-care, right? I tell people oftentimes, I no longer subscribe to the idea of balance. I subscribe to the idea of rhythm. A couple of years ago, a sister friend of mine was reading a book, and this lady introduced this idea of rhythm over balance. And I caught that idea so much so, loved it so much so, that I created a whole conference over it. As y'all can see, the Rhythm of Life Women Wellness Conference. I created a whole conference theme off of it because I love the idea of rhythm. What balance says is that the scales have to be equal at all times, right? work hard, play hard, everything is equal, boom, everything is great. The reality is most of us will never be able to achieve balance, because balance means that everything is in perfect harmony. And to be honest, that is just not a reality of life where everything can be in perfect harmony at all times, right? Because we can't control what happens. We can control ourselves to some respect, but I can't control if I wake up tomorrow and a family member goes into a hospital, or if I wind up getting sick, or if something happens with my business, or like I can't control any of those aspects. Those things come. And so if I'm looking for balance and then something comes to throw things off balance, I'll never be able to find balance. And then by definition, I've already failed before I've begun, right? But this idea of rhythm, I love the idea of rhythm. I like to think about it, thinking about the beat to a song. When you listen to a song, right, you have all these instruments playing. You have the drum, you have the horns, you have the pianos, you even have the vocals on the song, right? Whoever is singing, right? And so what happens is they're in perfect harmony and they're doing their thing. But at some point in most songs, you may notice that there's certain instruments or the vocals that may have the beat. At some point, the drums may have a solo. And during the drum solo, the drums are at the forefront. Now, that doesn't mean the horn stop. It doesn't mean that the piano stop. It doesn't mean that the vocals have died out, right? It just means that at this point in the song, the drums are doing their thing. And then at some point, the drums come back into harmony, and now it's the vocals' turn. And so now the vocals are getting it, right? They're out there, they're getting it. The vocals are doing their thing or whatever. And so all the instruments are still playing in the background. But at this point, it's just the vocals that have the forefront. That is the idea of rhythm. The idea of rhythm is that things in my life may still be going. And I'm not necessarily working to drop anything, but I understand that there's a focal point, at this season in my life. And I give my energy and attention to that focal point. So my focal point right now may be school. I'm in school and I'm grinding out and I'm making that happen. That doesn't mean that I stop wifing. It doesn't mean that I stop being a minister. It doesn't mean that my business shuts down. It just means that that extra measure of energy, I'm going to give it to school, and everything around me, I'm going to make sure that they know and understand, okay, some things just have to wait a little bit, right? I may not be able to show up the same way in the business. And so I put people in place to carry the things I can't carry in that season. I may not be able to do all the things in the house, right? So I make a plan with my husband, like, hey, in this season, I need you to cook on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'll take care of Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, rather than me cooking 5 days a week, right? It's finding where is the rhythm is, where is the focal point in that season, and then doing what I have to do so that everything around me doesn't drop. Nothing is dropping. We make sure that things are still in harmony, but that extra measure of energy I'm giving to that focal point. And that is the idea of rhythm, right? And that is what I want everybody to be able to get out of this podcast, is finding your rhythm of self-care. What is your rhythm of self-care in this season? Is it a health issue that came up? And that's where your rhythm needs to lie. And so you need to focus there. Whatever the rhythm may be, it's fine. Just making sure that you catch the rhythm and that you follow the rhythm at all costs, right? And so that's what we're trying to do over these next couple of episodes, over these next couple of weeks, is talk to you about how do you find your rhythm, right? And so that's a homework assignment for you. All right, y'all. So I'm a therapist, so I give homework sometimes. So in this podcast, every now and then I may jump in and say, okay, you got a homework assignment, but I want to give y'all a homework assignment. I want you to sit down. I want you to journal, write down. You could do a voice note, whatever the case is. I want you to sit down and figure out for yourself, what is my rhythm of self-care? What is the rhythm of my life in this season? What is the thing that is taking priority? And because this is a priority, what are some things that I have to reconsider my time commitment, my energy, and stuff like that, so nothing falls by the wayside, but that I'm able to better manage in this season, and I'm not trying to do all the things. Because truth of the matter is, and ladies, you know, I'm talking to you, it's probably going to be mostly ladies listening to the podcast, because we are Girl Be Selfish. But gentlemen, if you out there, you can get something just as much out of this podcast as well. But ladies, I want to talk to you. We're so used to being superwoman. We're so used to throwing on the cape. We're so used to trying to manage and balance all of the things at one time. And we are frustrated. We are overwhelmed. We are burnt out. We are trying to do too much. I want to tell you today, you are trying to do too much because you are trying to do much. Put it down. Put it down. Just go ahead, put it down. Consider what the rhythm is. You haven't been getting it done thus far, right? And so, that's a word. That's a word. So many of us are trying to carry things, and you haven't been able to get it done thus far. You haven't been successful at it. So if you put it down for a little bit and you walk away from it so that you can refocus and reprioritize, it wasn't getting done anyway, right? But we don't want to know, I don't want to let go. I'm going to keep trying, but you're not doing it and you're not doing it effectively. So why continue to hold on to something that you're not doing anyway, right? Selah. Now, think about that. And so your homework out of today's first episode is to sit down and figure out, what does my rhythm need to be in this season of my life, where I am? What is the rhythm? What are the things that take priority? What are the things that are at the forefront? And then what is it that I have to do in order to make sure that I catch my rhythm? Because when it comes to self-care, it's all about catching your rhythm. And so listen, y'all, I am super excited for you all to jump into this next seasons. We are going to be dropping an episode a week. So every Wednesday at 12 o'clock p.m. EST, because I got to say that every Wednesday, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be dropping another episode of the Girl Be Selfish podcast. So make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, make sure that you share, let everybody know that we're here, and stay tuned for a power-packed season of selfishness. Listen, I'm super excited to be with you all. Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned, and I'll be back with you with another episode next week. But until then, stay selfish. Bye, everybody.